ज्ञानविरागस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। हरे कृष्ण। We will just continue some of our discussion. Of yesterday's discussion, some points are remaining. How we discussed that this material world, there is it is actually comprehended in a different way. It is not just objective way of comprehending this world. It actually has a subjective nature. This material world has a subjective nature. And because it is having a subjective nature, we cannot just objectify the things and understand them. It is very difficult. So we need to properly understand it. And that is the way that is explained. Because initial way of approaching science is in an objective way. That means I try to objectify. This is the fundamental problem of the modern science. And they will never able to understand properly. And the example is of quantum mechanics. The consciousness of a person who is observer, based on that the quantum elements they react. And then we have seen example of how even in Ayurveda also, without having any very highly sophisticated technological instrument and gadgets, they can know which medicine, which herbs are work for which medicine. How could they do it? Because they communicate with the plants, and then they reveal the knowledge is in a subtle form. And this is how the system is. When a person enters into a relationship with this, with what he studies, then he proceeding from the fact that everything has a personal nature, and accordingly he will be able to understand. Now, why is impersonalism so fashionable, especially nowadays? Because why did he impersonal defeated everything? Everybody is so much interested in impersonalism because and Prabhupada went to West and is glorified. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Deshtarni, and Prabhupada also glorifying his spiritual master. And absolute is sentient, though has proved impersonal calamity, though has removed. No, for a very simple reason, because impersonal things are easier to deal with. Why are so many cars nowadays? Because just have to push the button and then they will go away. Everything is so simple. And more people try to reduce to a minimum by virtue of this deeply ingrained impersonalism is there. Because to minimize any personal interaction, people love because in any personal interaction implies love and self-surrender. Whereas why marriages break up so fast? Because they don't want it. It is a simple reason. Because in general, how can one live in general with a person? It is not possible. If a car, it is very much possible. Because car will not say anything back. And especially computers, laptops, mobiles, and everything. There is some stimuli, some qualities are there. We can interact with our laptop, mobile, but most of the time it does not have anything in return, and that's why it becomes very easy. But when it comes to a person, it is very difficult. Personalities must means we have to indulge, we have to develop interaction, and this everybody has. You have wife, then you have children, then you have to interact with them. things become more complicated in life. And any personal contact implies tradition. And people lose this ability to enter into this kind of relationship. And since they lose this ability, and they remain who they are. And that is all the degradation of world due to this. Because and now until actually even impersonalism is there in India, but still they have some uh, personal feelings and relationship in India, that still some part is there also. Like anything, like if you see Vedic culture, na, if they want to learn instruments, first what they do, they worship the instrument. Now, especially now Navaratri, Durga Puja day, all the instruments are worshipped. Car is worshipped. And you have some who is a mechanic, he worship all the tools which he is using. And if somebody is a musician, he worship all the instruments. You have to bow down to him. And then what happens? Uh, then only you will be able to properly do the activity. That's what how they understand the instrument offering pranam. Now they will the entire system is like that. It is resonance in another method of comprehension. When I surrender, I begin to adjust myself, my consciousness. And then when I have this egoistic consciousness about which Brahma is telling, if he's going to tell in the future verses, a person thinks that he is one single thing, Mama, Aham Mameti. Then who am I? Of course, I am. Actually, we are reflection of our consciousness. Whatever we are seeing, it's a reflection of our consciousness. And if we are seeing in an impersonal way, we are already destroying ourselves. We have destroyed everything. And this is, he has forgotten that he is a person and is not able to identify. Somehow he sees everything as dead matter and continue to live in this world. So if we see everything as dead matter, this dead will be an invariable concomitant factor of our existence. So why we are dying every time? Nobody want to die. But we die for one reason, because of our wrong view of this world. Every time, bhutva, bhutva, every time we are dying because of our wrong view. The view of the world is initially incorrect. The initial point is wrong. What is that? I am matter. This is the scientific way of studying. We cannot comprehend or understand the infinite, inexhaustible personality from which everything came out, because our initial premises is wrong. We are matter. No, we are spirit, soul, and everything has that personal feature in it. That's what we have to see. Why it is saying personal feature? Because it is coming from a personal Lord. Because it is coming from a personal Lord, it has a personal feature. Because we have Satkaryavad, according to that, the cause is manifested in the effect. Because the cause is a person, the effect is also having a personal nature. That is the point. And the method that is given in the olden times, it is given it like even the modern material advancement is actually Nirvisesha or Mayavad or Shunyavad, because materialism is what? It is emptiness. Whole world is empty. And then the whole heart of a person becomes empty. And this way of looking at the world, everything is meaningless. Because there are so many Mayavadis in India. But even in India, Mayavadi is more personal than the Western version. West, because they are more materialistic. Indian Mayavadis, at least they are practicing some spirituality. So they have that personal understanding. But West, it is more completely gross. Because in India, the Mayavadis, they understand how to communicate. In India, they're actually, because they know if I want to go, they have to communicate, they have to develop some relation, something is there. And now the this is actually what is one of the point, like one time when Buddhist monk, not Buddhist monk, actually it's a story of Buddhas. One time one fellow was lifting some water and pouring water to cultivate his field. And this is some thousands years back, 3,000 years back. And then one person comes, he was going on the way, he sees this person is working very hard, lifting water and all. He asks, "What are you doing?" He says, "Lifting water." I said, "Why don't you keep a wheel and rotate it, make a mission type, and then water will come automatically. So why don't you make a mission?" That person says, "If I make a mission, then my mind will also start dealing with in a mechanical way. And when I start dealing things in a mechanical way, my heart will get contaminated. And then and everything will be contaminated for me. So you just get out of here. I don't have to do anything with you." The point is, when we're dealing with missions, then our mind start becoming very mechanical, and then because of which heart is getting contaminated. This is actually the problem. And and then there is one more story. This is also from Buddhist tradition only. It says one of the minister, he tells to the king that there is a person who knows very good about the horses. Then the king was very interested. He says, "Oh, really? Okay, I want to know how special he is." And then the emperor decided to check. So he brought a horse to him and said, "Okay, well, can you tell about this horse?" He says, "Oh, this is a bay mare." And it was a white, actually, it is a male horse, but he says it's a female. The emperor was completely shocked. Means he says, "I thought you are so expert." And this person, why he is speaking like this? Then he said to this minister, "Are you said this person is very expert and he's saying like this." Then the minister said, "Oh, I am really amazed because I know that he knows about the horse, but I don't know how deeply he knows. Now I'm understanding." And to such an extent, he understands actually the inner being of the animal also, not just the external look. Because he's look at the white stallion and he's realizing that he's actually a bay mare. That means he's looking at a female male and he's understanding it's actually having the consciousness of a female. So that means what? There is, it's not just external thing, there is an internal state of consciousness for everything. That is why we need to be more personal. And to the degree we are developing this personal, to the degree we'll be able to understand the Supreme Lord, because Supreme Lord is a person. For us to deal with people becomes very difficult. They stay in the neighbors, but they don't understand, they don't know anything about neighbors. They cannot even give some food and communicate with them. We should at least distribute some prasadam to our neighbors. Try to communicate at least in exchange of prasadam, even though they may not be devotees. We need to have that feeling in the heart that we need to communicate. We need to have communicate with the plants in our garden. We need to have at least put some grains to the birds, put some water. We keep water for birds in the summer because there is no water available. Some grains we have to put, some we have to give some food to the dogs in the street. We have to communicate with the plants, neighbors. We have to develop more and more this personal nature, which will help us to understand the Supreme Lord. It is not that all are Maya. What happens is already we have certain understanding, And what we do when we come to Krishna consciousness, when we hear everything is Maya and everybody is in Maya, everybody is doing is stupid, then it's a good excuse for us to neglect everything and just be in ourselves. Say, I am just practicing pure devotional service. No need to do anything with these people. They are all in Maya. It is not like that. We need to be more and more personal when we are traveling or anything. We have to, because I have this so much impersonal tendencies. That's why I'm trying to understand this properly. So this is the method that we need to communicate with the people. We need to understand how people are, how what they go through, and we try to help them and understand. These all things are very much important. And the method to understand Supreme Lord is surrender. By surrendering completely, Sarvatma, then what with all our soul, with all our we have, then we can understand Krishna. And this is how Krishna can be understood. And there is no other way. Krishna, that is how we can go to the spiritual. Sarvadharman parityadya mam ekam sharanam vraja. Now, initially, what happens is when we are comprehending the Lord, I am not trying to proceed from the we we have to have certain understandings. Okay, we'll just continue this little part is there. When we come to the 48th verse, we'll discuss. We'll continue Krishna's pastimes till we come. We have a few more verses. Brahma gives some more understanding. We'll come to that point also. So here we have discussed a straight. And 32 says, when the cowherd men of Vrindavan, under instructions of Krishna, stopped offering sacrifice to the heavenly king Indra, the whole tract of land known as Vraja was threatened with being washed away by the constant heavy rains for 7 days. Lord Krishna, out of his causeless mercy upon the inhabitants of Vraja, held up the hill known as Govardhan with one hand only, although he was only 7 years old. He did this to protect the animals from the onslaught of water. Now, Prabhupada is writing nice purport. He says, children play with an umbrella generally known as frog's umbrella. Lord Krishna, when he was only 7 years old, could snatch the great hill known as Govardhan Parvat at Vrindavan and hold it for 7 days continuously with one hand just to protect the animals and the inhabitants of Vrindavan from the wrath of Indra, the heavenly king, who had been denied sacrificial offering by the inhabitants of Rajabhumi. Prabhupada says, factually, there is no need of offering sacrifice to the demigods for their service if one is engaged in the service of Supreme Lord. Sacrifices recommended in the Vedic literature for satisfaction of demigods are a sort of indicament inducement of the sacrifice to realize the existence of higher authority. Now, what is recommended? Sorry, inducement. Why the sacrifices are there in the Vedic literature of demigods? So that we can understand that there is a higher authority. That's all. Once you understand higher authority, slowly understand what is the highest authority. That is the point. The demigods are engaged by the Lord as a controlling deity of material affairs. And according to Bhagavad Gita, when the demigod is worshipped, the process is accepted as indirect method of worshipping Supreme Lord. So when we are worshipping demigod, it's an indirect worship. But when the Supreme Lord is worshipped directly, there is no need of worshipping demigods or offering them sacrifices recommended in particular circumstances. Lord Krishna therefore advised the inhabitants of Vrajabhumi not to offer any sacrifice to the heavenly king Indra. But Indra, not knowing Lord Krishna is in Vrajabhumi, was angry at the inhabitants of Vrajabhumi and tried to avenge. And this is the point here. Thus, this incident definitely prove without a doubt that Lord Krishna is the personality of Godhead and that he was so in all circumstances, as a child on the lap of mother or when he is 125 years on the battle of Kurukshetra, every time he is supreme personality of Godhead. Kridan bane nishan निशिनिशाकररसं पुनायां रासोन्मुख कलपदाय मूर्छितेन उद्दीपितः स्मररुजां व्रजभृद् विभूनां हर्तुर्हरिष्यति शिरोधनधानुगस्य. This is when the Lord was engaged in his pastime of the Rasa dance in the forest of Rajabhumi, enlivening the sexual desires of the wives of the inhabitants of Vrindavan by sweet and melodious songs. A demon of the name Shankachuda, a rich follower of the treasure of heaven, Kuvera, kidnapped the damsels and Lord severed his head from his trunk. Prabhupada, these pastimes are explained by Brahmaji to Narada. We should carefully note that the statement described herein are the statements of Brahmaji to Narada, and he was speaking to Narada of events that would happen in the future during the advent of Lord Krishna. The pastimes of Lord are known to the experts who are able to see the past, present, and future, and Brahmaji, being one of them, foretold what would happen in the future. The killing of Shankachuda by Lord is more recent incident after the Ras Leela, not exactly a simultaneous effort. In the previous verse, we have seen also that Lord's engagement in the affairs of forest fire was described along with the pastimes of punishing Kaliya snake, and similarly the pastime of Rasa dance and killing of Shankachuda are described herein. The adjustment is that all these incidents would take place in the future after the time when it was being foretold by Brahmaji to Narada. The demon Shankachuda was killed by the Lord during his pastime on Holika Purnima in the month of Falguna, and the same incident is still commemorated in India by the burning of an effigy of Shankachuda one day prior to Holika Purnima, and the day on which the festival generally known as Holika is celebrated. Generally, the future appearance and activities of the Lord or his incarnations are foretold in the scripture, and then the pseudo incarnations are unable to cheat people who are in knowledge of events as they are described in the authoritative scripture. So Prabhupada always try to add some things like this which help us to not to get unnecessarily uh, uh, people don't get swayed away with so many pseudo incarnations. ये चे प्रलम्बकरधो धर्धुरकेशि अस्ता मल्लेबकंसयवना कपिपौण्डरकाध्या अन्ये च शाल्वकुजभवल बल्वलदन्तवक्रा सप्तोक्षसम्भरविधूरत रुक्मिमुख्या ये वा मृदे स्मृति शालिनी आतचाप्या काम्बोजमत्स्य कुरु सञ्जय कैकयाध्या यास्यन्ति अधर्षण अलम् बलपार्थ भीमा विज्ञाज्वये हरिणा निलय तदीयम्. It says that all the demonic personalities Brahma is telling, like Pralamba, Denuka, Baka, Keshi, Arishta, Charuna, Mushtika, Kolai Pida, elephant, Kamsa, Kalayavana, Narakasura, Pondraka, great marshals like Shalva, Bivida monkey, and Balvala, Dantavakra, and the seven bulls, Sambara, Vidhurata, and Rukmi, as also great warriors like Kamboja, Matsya, Kuru, Sanjaya, and Kaikeya, would all fight vigorously, either with Lord Hari directly or with him names under his names of Baladeva, Arjuna, Bhima, etc. And the demons thus being killed would attain either impersonal Brahmajyoti or his personal abode in the Vaikuntha planet. This is very nice explanation by Brahmaji. And very nice, some nice points are there in the purport. He says that all the manifestations both in the material and spiritual world are demonstration of the different potencies of the Lord Krishna. The personality of God, Baldev, is his immediate personal expansion. Bhima, Arjuna, etc. are his personal associates. The Lord would appear, and he does so whenever he appears with all his associates and potencies. Therefore, the rebellious souls, like the demons and demonic men, mentioned by the name Pralamba, would be killed either by the Lord himself or by his associates. All these affairs will be clearly explained in 10th canto, but we should know well that all the above mentioned living entities killed would attain salvation either by being merged in Brahmajyoti of the Lord or being allowed to enter into the abodes of the Lord called Vaikuntha. This has already been explained by Bhishma Deva. All persons who participate in the battlefield of Kurukshetra or otherwise, so in the future, uh, otherwise the Lord or with Baladeva, etc., would benefit by attaining the spiritual existence according to the situation of their mind at the time of death. The point is, those who recognize the Lord would enter Vaikuntha, and those who estimated the Lord as only a powerful being would attain salvation by merging into the spiritual existence. So, which demons go to the Vaikuntha? Who recognize the Lord. And which demons who has only seen him as a personal, they go to impersonal Brahmajyoti. But every one of them would get released from material existence. Since such is the benefit of those who play the Lord with the Lord inimically. So now Prabhupada is saying, one can imagine what would be the position of those who devotedly serve the Lord in a transcendental relationship with Him. This is कालेन मीलितधिया अवमिश्रनिर्ना स्तोकायुषां स्वनिगमो भतधूरपार्थ पार आवृहितस्तु अनुयुग्म सहि सत्यवत्यां वेद ध्रुवं विद पशो विभुजस्य स्म. This is about Vyasdev. He is only writing. Vyasdev is telling about himself. The Lord himself, in his incarnation as the son of Satyavati, Vyasdev will consider his completion of the Vedic literature to be very difficult for the less intelligent people with short lives. And thus, he will divide the tree of Vedic knowledge into different branches according to the circumstances of particular age. This is what happens and why Vyasdev has divided. Here, Brahmaji mentioned the future compilation of Srimad Bhagavatam for the short-lived persons of Kali Yuga. So, as explained in the first canto, the less intelligent people of Kali Yuga would be not only short-lived but also perplexed with so many problems of life due to awkward situation of godless human society. Advancement of material comforts of body is active in mode of ignorance according to the laws of material. Real advancement of knowledge means progress of knowledge and self-relation. But in the age of Kali, this less intelligent men mistakenly consider short lifetime of 100 years. And they are less intelligent because they have no information of eternity of life. They identify with the temporary material body existence for 40 years and consider it to be only basic principles of life. Such persons are described as equal to ass and bulls. So Prabhupada is giving nice. And then we have next incarnation. Devetisham nigamavarmani nishtithanam पूर्भिर्मये विहिताभिरदस्य तूर्भै लोकान् गन्तिमतिविमोहमति प्रलोभं विश्वं विदाय बहुभास्यति औपधर्म्यम्. He says with the atheist, after being well versed in the Vedic, when the atheist, after being well versed in the Vedic scientific knowledge, annihilated inhabitants of different planets flying unseen in the sky, On well-built rockets prepared by the great scientific Maya, the Lord will bewilder their minds by dressing himself attractively as Buddha and will preach on sub-religious principles. Wow, this is nice. They are atheists, they are using scientific knowledge, annihilating the inhabitant different, flying unseen in the sky on well-built rockets. This technology which is there in the lower planet systems is all by Maidanava. And now whatever technology we are getting from there only. All these mechanical ways of flying, mechanical gadgets, this all mobiles, telephone, all this technology is from lower planet. They are much more evolved. They have much more scientific advancement than us. Now, Prabhupada is writing very interesting thing. This incarnation of Lord Buddha is not the same Buddha incarnation we have in the present history of mankind. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, the Buddha incarnation mentioned in this verse appear in different Kali Yuga. In the duration of life of one Manu, there are more than 74 Kali Yugas, and one of them, the particular type of Buddha mentioned here, would appear. Lord Buddha, Lord Buddha incarnates at a time when the people are most materialistic and preaches common sense religious principles. Such ahimsa is not a religious principle itself, but it is an important quality for persons who are actually religious. It is a common sense religion because one is advised to do no harm to any other animal or living being, because such harmful actions are equally harmful for him who does the harm. But before learning these principles of non-violence, one has to learn two other principles, namely to be humble and to be prideless. Wow, such a nice point proposed. Really, can I read again? It is common sense religion because one is advised to do no harm to any other animal or living being, because such harmful actions are equally harmful to him who does the harm. But before learning these principles of sorry before learning these principles of non-violence, one has to learn two other principles, namely to be humble and to be prideless. Unless one is humble and prideless, one cannot be harmless and non-violent. And after being non-violent, one has to learn tolerance and simplicity of living. One must offer respects to great religious preachers and spiritual leaders, and also train the senses for controlled actions. Learning to be unattached to family and home and to render devotional service to Lord, etc. At the ultimate stage, one has to accept the Lord and become his devotee. Otherwise, there is no religion. In religious principles, there must be God in the center. Otherwise, such moral instructions are merely sub-religious principles, generally known as upadharma or nearness to religious principle. So, what all things are needed? We need to humble pridelessness and tolerance and simplicity. So by humble pridelessness, one can develop non-violence, harmless, and he will be non-violent. And then from there, he will develop tolerance and simplicity of living. And simplicity is the way we can develop bhakti. Arjuna means simple. One who can, we need to be simple because Lord is very simple. Thereafter, at the end of Kali Yuga, when there exists no topics of the subject of God, even at the residence of so-called saints and respectable gentlemen of the three higher castes, and when the power of government is transferred to the hands of ministers elected from the low-born Shudra class, or those less than them, and when nothing is known as the techniques of sacrifice, even by word, at that time the Lord will appear as the supreme chastiser. And this is the symptoms of worst conditions of material world at the last stage of this age, called Kali Yuga, are stated herein. The sum and substance of such condition is godlessness. Even the so-called saints and higher castes of social order, generally known as the Dvija Dvijanas are twice born will become atheistic. Such, all of them will practically forget even the holy name of Lord, what to speak of his activities. The higher caste of society, namely the intelligent class of men, disguising the destinies of social orders, the administrative class of men, guiding the law and order of society, and the productive class of men, guiding the economic development, must all be properly well versed in the knowledge of Supreme Lord. This is the problem that is happening, and even now also it is happening. Something is still there because of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message. And when there is too much inflation of these decorated dead bodies in the society, they develop so many anomalies in the progressive, peaceful life of the human because of the lack of training of culture in the upper section of the social order. They are no more to be designated as the Dvijagnas, Dvijanas, Dvijajanas, otherwise. So at that time, Lord will come. Oh, one nice point proposes. The significance of being twice born has been explained in many places in the great literature. And again, one is reminded here in the birth executed by the sex life of a father and mother is called animal birth. But such animal birth and progress of life on the animal principle of eating, sleeping, fearing, mating is called Shudra life. And we know this is Kali comes to destroy them. And we have uh, one more, we have, I think, two more shlokas, and then comes the section ends. Just we'll read this one. सर्गे तपोऽहं ऋषयो नवये प्रजेशा स्थाने अत धर्ममखमयन मन्व अमरत्वा अमरावनीशा अन्ते अधर्महरमणयो वशासुराध्या माया विभूत इमा पुरशक्तिभाजा. At the beginning of creation, there was pen. Myself, Brahman, the nine Prajapatis, the great sages who generated them during the maintenance of the creation. There are Lord Vishnu, the demigods with controlling power, the kings of different planets. But at the end, there is irreligion, and then Lord Shiva and the atheistic, full of anger, etc. All of them were different representative manifestation of energy of the supreme power, the Lord. Prabhupada says that material world is created by the energy of Lord, which is manifested in the beginning of creation by the penance of Brahmaji, the first living being in the creation. And then there are nine Prajapatis known as great sages. In this, in the stage where when the creation is maintained, there are devotional service to Lord Vishnu or factual religion, the different demigods, the kings and different planets, all these things purposes, but all of them are but different manifestation of Supreme Lord. So that is very important. And ultimately, the material creation is but a temporary manifestation meant to give a chance to of liberation to the conditions. This will take last one. Who can describe completely the powers of Vishnu? Even the scientist who may have counted the particles of atom of the universe cannot do so, because it is Vishnu only who, in the form of Trivikram, moved his leg effortlessly beyond the topmost man, Satyaloka, up to the neutral state of three modes of mental nature, and other planets are moved. So it says Vishnorna Virya Gananam Katamo Ahartiha अर्हतीह यत्पार्थिवामपि कवैर्विममे ऋजांसि चष्कम्बयस्वरक्षाक्षतालत्रिपृष्ठं यस्माद्विसाम्य सदनात् उरुकम्पयाना. This is talking about how Lord in the form of Trivikram is there. So Brahma is basically telling, I cannot understand the Supreme Lord. So we cannot understand the Supreme Lord. How Brahma himself is telling, I cannot understand. So, what is the hope for us? After telling all the past tense, Brahma come to this conclusion. We'll take one last verse for today and then we'll end. Tomorrow we'll continue because our section starts from 42 to 48. These are the sections. Of course, still 53 are there. So tomorrow we'll complete 43. One shloka will take. नान्तं विदाम्यहममी मुनयो अग्रजास्थे मायाबलस्य पुरुषास्य कुतो अवरया अवराये गायन् गुणां दशशतानाम् आदिदेवा शेषोऽधुनापि समवश्यति नास्य पारम्. He says, neither I nor all the sages born before you know fully the omnipotent personality of God. So what can others who are born after us know about him? Even the first incarnation of Lord, namely Shesha, has not been able to reach the limits of such knowledge, although he is describing the quality of Lord with 10,100 mouths. So this is about Ananta Sesha. So from here we will take 42 to 53 tomorrow. Thank you all very much. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.